Okay, so this is part 2. I'm still struggling to get my engine running properly. It is running, it makes great power, but it still has this pop, and it's unburned fuel getting into my exhaust somehow. And I've tried advancing my timing right up to 50 degrees before top dead center, and having it down as low as 0. And it doesn't matter. I had my carburetor leaned out as much as possible, and I've actually had it running on 2 different carburetors as leaned out as much as possible, and I'm still getting my spark plugs fouled right up. So that's an indicator that, you know, it's way too rich, and you can smell it, you can see it, you can hear it. And shy of modifying my carburetor, I don't want to start drilling holes in my throttle plates yet or anything like that. I'm going to start by changing the plug. So what I chosen to do with this build was stick with the factory recommended Autolite 65, and you know, that's what I thought I needed based on a lot of online research. And I mean, I'm not trashing the Autolite plug by any means. Maybe I've just made a choice that is probably too cold for my application. And it's counterintuitive, because usually when you make an engine higher performance by raising the compression, you usually need to go to a colder plug. And in reality, I've stuck with a factory heat range, and I'm getting fouled up like crazy. And so I'm going to go one step hotter to try and make this problem go away. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to have a 13/16 sized plug, because it is so hard to get in here. On the driver's side, number 7 and number 5 are so hard to get at. I mean, it takes me almost 20 minutes to change 2 rear spark plugs. I don't want to have to take the header off every time. So I'm in there with knuckles, and I have a cut down 13/16 socket, and I'm putting a 7/8 wrench around the side, and I can only move it a millimeter at a time, and it is just not fun. So I'm going to put in a 5/8 size plug, and that's going to give me a lot more room. I'll be able to get a smaller 3/4 inch wrench in there, and the space difference is going to make the job so much easier. So I'm going to go to a 5/8 plug, like I said, and I'm going to step it up 1 heat range. And just to show you how much of a difference it's going to make, I mean, look at the size difference between my 5/8 and my 13/16. I can get away with a much smaller wrench and a much smaller socket in that tight area, and that's just going to make life so much better. Demon Racer had a great question for me about my harmonic balancer to make sure that it hasn't slipped, and I've been thinking about that, and a friend asked me the same question. So yeah, I mean, it could be that my timing marks are in the wrong position on my harmonic balancer if the outer ring slipped. That means I'm trying to time the engine inaccurately, and I'm just going through all this motion and not getting it solved. So I need to go back and eliminate that as a problem. And so the tool online is about $35, and then a week or 2 to wait. And I just want to get this done now. So I'm going to sacrifice an old spark plug, bust the porcelain out, weld a nut on top, and put a bolt through it. And then I can use that as a piston stop tool. I can thread it into my spark plug hole, rotate my crankshaft by hand until the piston touches it and stops, make a mark on my balancer, rotate it the opposite direction till it stops, make a mark on my balancer. And between those 2 points should be my top dead center. And if that lines up with my balancer, then I know that that's not the problem. If the marks on my balancer don't line up, then I've totally figured it out. So busting the top part off was easy. I'm going to have to drill it out and get the little grounding strap off of it and get the center part out still. A little hacksaw and cut the ground strap off. Shouldn't take much. tool is complete. My welds aren't that pretty. I haven't touched my welder in over a year. Here's a close-up of my homemade tool in position. Like I said, not pretty, but it should work. Okay, I hit my first stop. So I'm going to place a mark on my balancer. The felt marker at the 0. Now I'm going to go backwards the other way until I come to a stop. And there's my other stop. Okay, so I did exactly what I was supposed to do, and guess what? My timing marks are in the right place. So I put a black line on each stop. You can see the marks that I just made, and my 0 is right in between the 2 marks that I just made. So my balancer is accurate. The news is I made a tool and it worked. The bad news is I was hoping to find a problem with that tool, but I haven't yet. I guess this works with my process of elimination. Now I know that my balancer, the timing marks on it are indeed accurate. So that tells me right now that this car likes running, you know, above 40 degrees advanced at idle to not have popping. And then when I put it in gear and try to drive it, well, it's kind of out of control. When I'm up there above, you know, 40, 50 degrees advanced timing, I'm getting vacuum of like 17, 18 or more. And I wasn't getting the vacuum down low, you know, around 18 degrees where I would normally want to set a Mopar. So that's where I'm at right now. And I tried rejetting my Holly and leaning it out even more, and had problems. So I went back and I put my Edelbrock carburetor on it, and of course with my Edelbrock carb it's still doing the same thing. So it doesn't really matter which carburetor I have on it, like I said in the previous video, but that's where I'm at. Okay, so my friend AJ says, I noticed you have an MSD box. And yes, I have an MSD 6. And he says, well, that's your multiple spark below 3,000 RPM. And I'm like, yeah. And well, what that does is it confuses a conventional timing light. So, and I read online that an adjustable timing light is even more confused by that. So I'm trying to set the timing and have a timing light that is not compatible. Now, above 3,000 RPM, a box like this will switch to one single spark, but hotter spark, and then your timing light becomes accurate again. And so one thing I can do is rev this car up above 3,000, set my timing, my all-in timing, and then when I back it down, I should be back at my idle timing. Pretty close. Okay, so I was up late and I was doing some reading, and I stumbled across something amazing on the Edelbrock tuning guide. And it said if you have a long duration camshaft, you can end up with a low vacuum pressure. And I have that problem. And then it said that people end up advancing the timing to get higher vacuum to get these carburetors to run properly. Bingo, I've been doing that. And so what happens is there's step-up springs inside the carburetor, and they're calibrated for a certain amount of vacuum pressure at idle. And so if I can't overcome the spring pressure, then I'm stuck full rich. And then I would get fouled up plugs, and I would be advancing that timing to try to get it to run properly. So maybe what I have here is just a simple tuning problem. Because we know that I'm super rich. We know that I got fuel getting through the engine and blowing up in the exhaust. We know that I've been playing around with the timing. And why don't I just tune the carburetor so that it could run where it should for timing on a low vacuum pressure. So that's what I'm going to do. And so it gives you a recommendation of springs. So I mean, I was only around 6 or 7 for vacuum pressure when my timing is down where it should be. And so you take half that number and then you get the spring. So I think I'm going to start right at the smallest spring, the blue ones, because if I'm at 6, then I should pick the number 3. And let's give that a whirl. Okay, so I just pulled this one out and I'm going to put the smaller blue one in. That's made for the lowest vacuum setting. Okay, so as I'm doing this, I'm wondering, literally, did I just find myself a $14 fix that takes only 5 minutes? And I've spent hours and hours and hours trying to get this engine running right. An engine that I did, in fact, build correctly. So literally, it's that fast to pull out a metering rod and spring. And so, I mean, literally. And that's it. It's not any better. Okay, so as you can see, I'm nowhere closer to having this problem solved. And I need to step away from it for a few minutes again and put my thinking cap on and keep eliminating things. Well, I think I finally got it. Idling at about 18 degrees advanced, about 700 RPM-ish, and it hasn't popped once, and my total advance I think is somewhere around 36. What was the culprit? I pulled off my MSC Blaster 2 coil and put on a different one. It could have just been that it was a coil the entire time. We'll take it for a drive and find out. Watch how easy it starts now. So in hindsight, I probably should have looked at how hot that spark was. Like, I knew I had spark and I knew that it was running. I just didn't check the quality of it. And that might have, led me to replacing that coil a lot sooner. Okay, so the one thing I didn't think it would be, it was. I used my multimeter earlier and I tested the resistance on the coil on the car and the other one, and they were both the same. And I just had the idea, why not put my old coil on and see what happens. And the moment I did that and started it up, there was no popping, no hesitation. I was able to take that advanced timing, bring it right back down to 18 where it should be, and it ran smoothly. Then I was able to adjust my air-fuel mixture, and it still continued to run smooth. I revved it up, still continued to run smooth. Tried it out in gear, was happy, took it up and down my driveway a few times, and then I took it around the block. and it performed phenomenally. I only took it up to about 4,000 or 5,000, and wow, it was incredible. I was able to just light them up in first and second gear without even putting my foot to the floor, and it's going to be a wild car to drive, that's for sure. And now I can go ahead and I could get rid of this break-in oil, put in some conventional oil, and continue my process here. And I really want to take a moment and thank everybody for all their good advice. You know, now I know a lot more about this car, a lot more about tuning, and maybe someone else learned something from this. And so the reason why my plugs were fouled up so badly and that I needed so much extra timing was that coil was just toast. And swapping the coil out put this car back to normal. And I had no reason to suspect that would be it, because I took an engine out and I rebuilt it, I put it back in, and I reused all my ignition system that was previously working perfectly. So I had no reason to believe that a coil would have just failed. I wanted to blame the work that I had done to this engine, and you know what? Had nothing to do with that, and I'm super happy, and I get to move forward here. So thanks everybody for your help, and I hope you stay tuned to my channel, because you know, I do intend to race this car and run it hard and take it to shows and, you know, just have an incredible time with it. So stay tuned.